So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aldas Kriauciunas. I'm the Executive Director of Purdue's MBA programs, and I'm pleased to be joined by one of our alums today, Anna. And Anna graduated, it's been a year, I think?
It has.
So Anna and I today will be going over our programs and answering questions that you may have to help you choose the path that's right for you. Feel free during the presentation today that if you have questions, you can unmute your mic or you can use a chat box to ask any questions of myself or Anna. So all of you may be looking at different formats in terms of an EMBA program, and you really have three main options: online, evening, weekend, and residency. And our philosophy here is that there are certain things you can only do in a residency program. Residency meaning you're on campus less frequently, but when you are, it's for a longer period of time, 1 to 2 weeks. Online gives you flexibility, but you don't really interact with people. Evening, weekend, you interact with people inside the classroom, but really there's limited interaction outside the classroom, and plus most people live locally. With a residency format, which is what we have, and we'll be talking about more, you have the flexibility between the times on campus. And then when you are together, when the evening rolls around, you may be working on a case study, a project, going out for dinner, and therefore that communication, that interaction continues. And you feel one that leads to greater learning, but also forming stronger bonds when you are together and after you graduate from the program. Here's one photo capturing those bonds that can form. This is from our last year. They worked with the Purdue rowing team to learn about rowing, but then they put that, call it instruction, into action on the Wild West River here in West Lafayette. And part of the goal was to not just talk about leadership and communication and teamwork, but really put everyone in an environment they weren't so familiar with or comfortable with and see what they can do. They had a lot of fun. They didn't hit anyone with the oars, but they also learned the importance of coordination and the drawbacks that can happen when you don't have that good communication happening. Again, you can't do that online, evening or weekend formats because there just typically isn't the time for that type of interaction. And this is a lesson to remember for a long, long time. Quick overview of Purdue University. So we just celebrated our 150th anniversary. Very exciting. All these events that we had going on campus. We're part of the Big Ten, and through its history, Purdue has kept expanding such that we have majors in over 200 different areas. So while today we're focused on the EMBA programs here at Purdue, keep in mind that if you enroll and as a student, you have access to a lot of resources across the different schools and colleges at Purdue University. Purdue has over 600,000 alumni around the world, and I think Anna can attest that wherever you go, you're going to meet a Purdue alum, and if you're wearing Purdue clothing, you're going to get a shout out from them. There is that strong connection that people feel to Purdue University. We have close to 50,000 Krannert alumni, about 3,000 EMBA alumni, Purdue alumni chapters throughout the U.S. and around the world. So while your cohort may be 25 to 30 people, keep in mind you're part of this much broader Purdue network around the world. As we move forward, what Anna and I will be discussing is what your classmates in your cohort may look like. We'll do a deeper dive on our blended learning format because it is quite unique. There's only about a dozen programs in the U.S. that have the format that we do. We'll talk about the benefits to you and to your company. And the benefits to the company are important because this program you're going to have to coordinate with your company to make it work out for you. We'll talk about how to get support to be in the program, and then we'll talk about next steps if you feel this program is the right fit for you. So here's a snapshot of just some of the companies represented over the past 3 years in our programs. And what you'll note is that there's no theme, there's no cookie cutter approach that we have for people to join. We have for-profit, not-for-profit, manufacturing, high-tech, oil and gas, pharma, and then we have individual entrepreneurs in the program as well. So you truly have a wide range of different experiences in the classroom with you. And because you're working with these people daily for 1 or 2 weeks at a time, you really get to know them, get to learn from them, and they get to learn from you at the same time. Let's do a deeper dive on what that profile is of the past 3 years. Then I'll have Anna talk a bit more about her background and how her cohort fits this general 3-year trend that we have. So in terms of work experience, which is critical, our minimum is 5 years required because that's the point we see people start having more management and or leadership responsibilities in their career. Average is 15, certainly no cap in terms of how much work experience people can bring to the program. In terms of positions that people are in, it's from analyst onward. So those positions fit very well with the years of work experience that people have. Industry, no one industry dominates our cohort, namely because people can and do live anywhere in the world as we go through our program. So it's a nice balance of technology, energy, manufacturing, science and health, government. And so you have that opportunity to be learning many different industries while you're in the program. And then in terms of geography, about a quarter of our students are from Indiana, about a quarter are international, and the rest are spread throughout the United States. We'll pause here for a moment and hand it over to Anna to talk about her background and just what her cohort looked like.
Thanks, Aldas. And I am having a little bit of a connectivity issue, so I turned off my camera in hopes that that would help with my bandwidth issue. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. So hi, everyone. My name is Anna Dietrich. I currently reside in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I am the HR manager for the Cummins power generation factory just north of Minneapolis. I've been with Cummins for 9 years, and at the point where I made the decision to go back to school, I'd had about 6 years of experience. Prior to that, I did receive my undergraduate degree from Purdue. And prior to that, I was born and raised in Indiana, and both of my parents are Purdue alums. So Black and Gold definitely always ran through the family and was raised in that Boilermaker spirit. When I think about my fellow classmates, I would say we're pretty representative of the statistics that all this shows here on the screen. So from my cohort specifically, I would say on the years of work experience, I was on the lower end, along with two of my other classmates that were about 5 or 6 years into our professional careers, all the way to the range of, having 20, 25 years of experience in their, specific industries, which was a really interesting blend when you think about, getting outside of just textbook learning and how much you can learn from individuals that have spent, decades in their industry. So I would say it's very proportionate to what is there on that pie chart. In terms of positions, it was the same. So we had, now a CEO of a local home builder, chief administrative officers, managers, and leaders. So that variety of positions, I think, definitely helped from a learning experience. And we even had one cohort member that, was self-employed and was just starting his own business. So it was really interesting to get to experience that through him. From an industry perspective, so I've spent all of my working experience working in primarily manufacturing. So it was really interesting, not just only to share my experience in that, but to learn, how things are the same, but also different in other industries and how that can kind of benefit my experience primarily in the manufacturing sector. And geographic backgrounds, Aldous mentioned that a lot of our classmates were local. But we did have colleagues that were flying in from the West Coast or internationally from, originally from Costa Rica. So that was, definitely interesting and I think shows the commitment to our fellow cohort members of, being in this program and being really invested. So when I think about the totality of the program, I always say I got lucky because I felt like we just had such a phenomenal cohort, and I always joked with all this, however you do this and however you match the teams, it really all comes together. So I would say all in all, my fellow classmates really made the experience for me.
Excellent, good to hear. If you could just tell us a little bit more of what you do currently.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, I'm the HR manager of a Cummins power generation factory. So we primarily assemble generators in three, I guess, three customers. So primarily for a commercial, so power generators for data centers, for example. So think Microsoft, Google, and Facebook. We also do a consumer sector, so that would be your home generator. We also have a strong play in the RV industry. So if you think about power generation for an RV, and then we have a sizable contract with the US military. So on site, we have about 1,000 employees, most of which are hourly assemblers. So a very interesting dynamic of a workforce. From an output, our estimated annual revenue was about 900 million, so just under $1 billion. We are celebrating our 100th anniversary this year in Cummins power generation. And from a Cummins perspective, I had previous experience in our turbos business and a little bit of time in our corporate and engineering organizations. But I recently relocated to the Twin Cities area. So as I mentioned, I've been with Cummins for 9 years, and I'd spent about 8.5 in southern Indiana, specifically Columbus, Indiana. And then after graduation, thought, well, it's time for another challenge. Why don't my husband and I relocate and try something a little bit different?
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing that. And we'll be pulling back upon that path that you've gone through as we talk further about the program. Looking at the curriculum for our EMBA programs, these classes should look familiar to Anna. So we divide our coursework into 3 main categories. One are the functional courses. So these relate to the functions that an organization, for-profit or not-for-profit, need just for their daily activities. Then you have the environmental. These are the courses that talk to the environment within which a firm works, be it the economics, be it the legal and ethical environment, corporate governance, those that kind of give that broader framing for organizations. And then the integrative. The integrative are courses that really require you to have a firm understanding of the functional and environmental elements of an organization, plus there is its own set of concepts that integrate it. So to do strategic management well, you really need to understand all the facets of an organization. To do change management as well, you need to understand all the pieces and processes so that you can move change management initiatives forward. So it comes together for our Purdue EMBA curriculum, and ours is a general management MBA curriculum. We feel the general manager needs to have this understanding of the functional, environmental, and integrative areas so that she or he can ask questions, make better decisions, pull upon the right people if there's a project or a challenge, and understand the trade-offs of different decisions that are being made within the organization. So here I'm going to talk about our blended learning format because it is quite unique. And then I'm going to ask Anna to comment on a few elements from her own experience. So both of our EMBA programs are 19 months from start to finish. We're starting each of our programs with an online launch. Our traditional EMBA starting this September, and our global EMBA starting every March. After that program launch, you're meeting your fellow students, you're going through team building exercises, then you're taking a class session for each of the courses of the first module. So it truly is this opportunity to form these bonds already from day one moving forward. Then begins the pre-residency part. The pre-residency is before you come to campus, and it's an online approach that we use. During that time, you're reading the ebooks that faculty have assigned. You're doing individual and team assignments. Faculty also create videos specifically for the course. It's not them recorded teaching somebody else. And then as you submit assignments, you'll also be getting feedback from the faculty. And then you'll have weekly or even twice a week meetings with your study team. That gives you that foundation that you need before you come to residency. Also, what I see is that most of our cohorts form a WhatsApp group so that you have coordination and communication, not just within your team, but across the whole cohort as well. With that pre-residency portion completed, then you come to campus. You come to campus, we'll look at a typical week here in a few slides, but you'll have typically 4 90-minute classes, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. Then that's complemented where appropriate by company visits to emphasize topics from the week, guest speakers, career management support. We think career management is critical for everyone to be managing their career and how they'd like to move forward. And then social events, it may be bowling, it may be a basketball game. Of course, during COVID-19, we're having to adjust some of these activities, but certainly the residencies are taking place. In fact, our current EMBA cohort is on campus this week, moving forward with their EMBA journey. When the on-campus portion is done, people return home, or you have 1 week to prepare for exams. And exams are over a 9-day period. They are also online, and they are what we call asynchronous, meaning you choose when you take each of the different exams. Maybe a morning person, maybe in the evening, maybe you'll take all 4 in a row, one day after another, or maybe you'll do them on the 2 weekends that cover that 9-day exam period. When exams are over, you typically have a 1-week break, and then you'll start the new pre-residency with new study groups. We in the program form the study teams to make them diverse yet balanced, so that you're learning from people with different backgrounds. And then each module, we change the study teams so that you work with as many different people as possible during your time in the program. As I think you'll be hearing today, and Anna's already talked about, the peer-to-peer learning is a critical part of our program. So we feel that by bringing people together from across the US and from around the world and giving them a format to be learning from each other day to day, that's really the best way to emphasize the learning and the networking within the program. Now, the first question, I'll pass it to Anna, is let's talk about the pre-residency. So most people, when they hear online, they think self-study, okay? Could you talk to us of what that online was like and how you use that time?
Yes, definitely. On the online preparation, it wasn't exactly probably what I had expected. So having been a traditional student in my undergraduate studies, I hadn't really had all that much experience in online work. And what I was pleasantly surprised at is the flexible format, so that asynchronous ability that I could schedule my personal and professional life around studying, but not that I ever felt that I was completely on my own. So for example, in your module team, so a team of 4 or 5, for example, we were meeting almost weekly, depending on the class, of course, but sometimes a couple times a week. So it always felt like you had the support network, so it wasn't really this isolated online work that was just you in front of your computer. So I would say there was multiple weekly occasions where I was texting with my classmates, asking clarifying questions, or hey, I'm struggling on this assignment or this activity, and always felt like I had a really good resource, not only from my fellow classmates, but also from the professors who were extremely accessible and always very willing to help. I think there's definitely an appreciation and a recognition that we're all working professionals and what it really takes to be successful at work and in your home life, and also a successful student. So really that pre-residency is everything from reading, so having the textbooks and assigned readings, to maybe posting a blog or a response to an article. Sometimes we did have more of a WebEx format where we would call in at a specific time, writing papers. So I would say, it was everything, but actually just sitting in the classroom, where yes, it was great because you could kind of self-serve, but you also, had that accountability and support network from professors and your fellow classmates.
You make a good point that the pre-residency, because it's pre-recorded, you don't have to be logging in every Wednesday at 7 p.m. to listen to a lecture. It does give you that flexibility. Can you comment on having a new study group each module? I know many other programs, they keep the same study group throughout your whole time in the program. So there's a stability to that, but in our view, it narrows the window of who you work with. How did you find the change of study teams each of the modules?
Yeah, I very much like the idea to get to work with all of my classmates. So, the beauty of a smaller cohort is that you do really form those close relationships, but those study groups allow you to kind of take it to another level and just getting to know and learn from everyone in your class. And I think, again, the design of those study groups, when I think about taking it through the different types of coursework or your active learning project, it really made my experience more rich. So, yes, I could have seen the ease and consistency of, learning other people's working style and preferences if you were with that same study group for the entirety of the program. I can certainly see the benefit. And I won't say that it isn't challenging, right? But if I think about translating, teams into a actual working environment, the ability to get to know someone quickly and think about how we work together, and learning about others' learning styles and preferences, I think is probably more representative of how real life works at times. Again, not just the application of getting to work with new teams or forming new teams, but the relationships that came out of it and just the richer experience that I got to meet more one-on-one with different members of my class.
Okay, thank you. And let's flip now to the exam period. So most people, and even yourself, coming in, you're used to going into maybe a large lecture hall, everyone, maybe a couple hundred people taking an exam at the same time. Certainly doing an online exam at home is a very different experience. So if you could talk to how you adjusted and how you managed that part of the program.
Yeah. So just going back to school in and of itself is intimidating, especially if you've been out of undergrad for a few years. So then the idea of taking a test is, oh yeah, I haven't done that in a few years. So there definitely is a clash with reality of, that traditional, 2 to 3 hour exam period. What I would say, and I think not just for the exam period, but overall, right, I wouldn't have been able to do a while working if I didn't have the ability to kind of work it into my life. So if I reflect back on taking exams, right, maybe sometimes it would be early in the morning before, I started my day or on a weekend, if I had a busy work week or in the evening or even over lunch. So the ability to make it work with my schedule was extremely important. And for that exam period. And I think what I like about this module format is it's consistent. So you know how to plan, you know what to expect. And everybody finds what works for them, right? I was more my rule was I only do one exam a day. I did have classmates that did multiple exams a day. So you'll find certainly what works best for you. But again, that examination period, knowing exactly when it was, I remember when we got our cohort schedule for, that 19 months, as I went ahead and I blocked my entire calendar so that, I had the time to focus and, I wasn't scrambling. So just being able to plan what was really important. The exam period specifically, having that week between to study and prepare, and then, sit down and have that focused time, I think worked well, right? It wasn't, didn't tell me when I had to take it or by when. So again, just that overall flexible format, especially with the exam period, I think worked really well.
Okay, thank you. So doing a deeper dive now on the 2 EMBA programs that we have. So Anna's a alum of our traditional EMBA program. And within this format, you come to West Lafayette 5 times, 1 to 2 weeks each. And then the last time we come together is a 2-week residency abroad. What's neat is that the cohort gets to choose where they go, a range of options. And so that makes you a partner in the learning process, and we adjust on where we go. If I recall, Anna, your group went to Brazil and Chile, correct?
That's correct.
And so more recently, the group that we have went to Spain, and next year they're looking at Italy and Belgium. So again, adjustments happening based on the interests of the cohort. Its point of uniqueness, or the bonus, as I like to call it, is the type and number of electives that we have. So we survey the cohort members for areas of interest, and then first they choose 3 2-credit electives that they take as a cohort based on a voting process. And then the second is these immersion electives. Immersion electives, again, the ideas are generated by surveying the students, and the students choose or rank order the areas of interest for them. And then based on that, we take the cohort and divide it into 2 or 3 subgroups. So you might have 10 people in your class for that immersion elective, which is why we call immersion, because you are truly immersing yourself in the learning. It's not a lecture. We often will even use our conference room, so everyone's at a table working together. And it gives you that chance to do a deeper dive, maybe on a topic that you haven't been exposed to, and takes you out of your comfort zone. As far as I know, we're like the only program, the MBA program in the nation, where students help to drive the curriculum choices of what we'll be teaching program. I don't know, Anna, if you remember, it's been a while, which immersion electives maybe you took, and if there's one that you want to comment on.
Sure. So, two that stick out in my mind specifically. So, one of them was a course on coaching and mentoring. And when I think about the many reasons that I did choose to go back to school and specifically pursue an MBA, is what it means to be a leader. So one of the specific electives was how to be a coach and a mentor, and that is a little bit different than being your traditional manager, right? So how do you take inspirational leadership and help others succeed? So and that was actually instructed by someone that wasn't, I would say, a traditional professor, but someone that had industry experience and rose to the vice president level of a very well-known company. So that in and of itself, of just having exposure and expanding my network through being in that elective of coaching and mentoring, I very much enjoyed it, and was probably, of all the courses, one that I enjoyed most. I think the other one was effective presenting, and it's not just your traditional, communications one-on-one that you think of from an undergraduate perspective, but again, in that leadership perspective of how you bring messages to individuals, and you inspire and motivate them. Getting a lot of experience on how do you craft messaging that makes others want to follow you and create that followership. So those are the 2 electives that I'm thinking of off the top of my mind that were definitely very memorable.
Yeah, thank you. Then we have our Imm Global Executive Mba. In this program, it's also the same residency format, except you go to a different country or pair of countries every time we meet. So there's 5 trips in total. We go to 7 countries on 4 continents to give you that global reach and understanding. But when we are in the countries, you get that, as we call it, the cultural and business immersion. You get to understand the country that you're in. You're meeting with senior managers of different companies to understand their business models, their business challenges, and then seeing what from what they're doing can apply to your own organization in a way that you haven't thought of. Or should your organization want to be expanding to these countries or regions, it can give you insights of what might be most effective. Additionally, through the Global EMBA, you earn 2 MBA degrees, one from Purdue and one from our Dutch partner, TIAS. So those are the differences. In terms of similarities, again, both are general management MBA. Both provide that networking that you're looking for. We provide executive career coaching. We'll talk a bit more about that in a few moments. We have that capstone consulting project that Anna was speaking about, and then cohort-based electives as well. So really the goal here is, what is it that you most value? Do you want the international aspect, the 2 MBA degrees, or are you looking for something potentially closer to home with more electives to choose from? looking at the schedule for our class that begins this fall. So we still are accepting applications for this September start. As indicated, we have the online launch mid-September. The first two residencies are 2 weeks each. Residencies 3, 4, and 5 are 1 week each. And there's a lower credit load because we try to front load the program so you get through the foundational courses before you move into the electives. And then the last residency, as indicated, is a 2-week international residency to 1 or 2 countries chosen by the cohort. Let me talk about the workload, then I'll have Anna correct me if I'm wrong. So we tell people to plan for about 25 hours per week when they're off campus in the September to end of February timeframe. That's when the credit load is highest. And then from modules 3 onward, the workload falls to about 15 to 17 hours per week. One thing we have adjusted since Anna has graduated is we've moved one of the courses from the first residency to the third to make that workload balance out just a bit more easily. So Anna, is that approximately what you would tell people to plan on as well?
It is, and it is what I experienced as well. And it's great to hear that one of those courses from residency 1 was pushed back, because I will say, again, going from the transition of going back to school, it took some time to get adjusted. And I remember sitting in an information session thinking, how in the world am I going to find 25 extra hours in my week? And you surprise yourself, right? And I think that's goes back to your diligence and commitment to the scheduling. But 20 to 25 hours is very much what I would have spent in that first residency, which for me looked like a few hours during the week, or using my lunch break to read and trying to earmark at least one day of the weekend. But that significantly tailored off as you got past residency 3. So I think, it's right that we prepare ourselves for that heavier coursework in the beginning, but knowing that it won't last forever. And you have that international residency to really look forward to.
Thank you. And then here we're looking at how Purdue's program compares with other schools across criteria that our applicants have said are important to them. So with the traditional EMBA, looking at affordability on an inverted scale. So ours is indeed one of the most affordable programs that people are looking at. Our alumni network is among the largest. And then the size of the bubble looks at the number of electives. So we do offer, and you take 6 electives in this program. One thing I'll point out where I believe we are unique is that our electives are only for the people in that cohort. We don't mix our students with other master's students. And the reason is that, again, that peer-to-peer learning that we emphasize is so critical. And so, I think Anna, I'll be asking her more about this, that bonding that happens in that peer-to-peer support becomes so strong that having someone come in who doesn't really subscribe to that philosophy, it doesn't help the overall learning within the cohort. So again, we focus on supporting the students in our EMBA cohort. Looking now for a moment at our Global Executive MBA. So this is a consortium of 6 top schools from around the world. So while they may not all be familiar to you today, keep in mind they are leaders in their country, in their region, in terms of business and or other education. And by having these partners, when we go to these countries, they're not just hosting us, but they are forming that tie to the culture and business in each of these countries. So indeed, at the end of your time in each country, you have that deeper appreciation and understanding for the different business and cultural systems within that country and region. In terms of the calendar, the Global Executive MBA begins every spring. Again, the online launch, as we talked about. The first 2 residencies take us to Europe, where they're all 3 are European Union countries, but at the same time, they have different cultures, different business models, different engines of growth, if you will. So you get that understanding of Europe, and most people are fairly comfortable traveling to Europe. Then we take our cohort a little bit further out of their comfort zone by going to South America, Brazil and Chile. Yes, they're both South American countries, but I think Anna will agree, very different countries as well. So again, having that contrast of different systems helps you start understanding the richness of different approaches around the world. We come to West Lafayette for Residency 4, and then we go to China at the very end. For most people, China's taking them furthest out of their comfort zone, but by having been to 6 other countries at this point, if you weren't a seasoned traveler, you will be at this point, and it's a great way to end the program going to the second largest economy in the world and just seeing how things work there on a day-to-day level beyond what the headlines may or may not be writing. So again, the 7 countries capturing the richness of business around the world. And then there's graduation here at Purdue, and then you also have the opportunity to travel to the Netherlands for their graduation ceremony as well. And then comparing Purdue's program with others as well. Here we're seeing that for global programs, Purdue's is indeed the most affordable across the main competitors that our applicants look at, large alumni network. And then the bubble is the number of countries visited. We go to more countries than any other global EMBA program. Again, by spending at least a week in a country, you come away with a true understanding of culture and business, not just a superficial drive-by approach. So let's talk about a typical week on campus, and then I'll quiz Anna again. So far, all A's today, Anna. So a typical week on campus is Monday through Saturday, with 2 classes, 90 minutes in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, breakfast and lunch provided on instruction days. And as mentioned earlier, we try to have a company visit to complement one of the courses in the curriculum. Free evening just means that we haven't planned anything in the program, but as indicated, you might be working on a case study or project, maybe going out for dinner with your team or with others in the cohort. What I think is important to note, and this is where I want Anna to comment on, is I would estimate around 90% of the students in the program have some minimal commitment to stay engaged with work obligations even when they're on campus. So by being on campus, you're certainly able to immerse yourself in the learning. In fact, our students say it takes till about lunchtime Tuesday for them to have shifted from work and family commitments to what's going on campus so they can really be focused on the learning. But there's breaks built in during the day and in the evening that if you have to respond to a phone call, check emails, maybe at the end of the day join a team meeting, there is some time built into the week for you to have that engagement. And I mention that because managers, what we're seeing, don't want to give up their employees for 2 weeks every quarter, even for an EMBA program. So this is a way for you to stay connected with what's going on back at work. Anna, can you kind of comment either for yourself or for others in your cohort on that?
Yes, in my experience, and I think that started very early on, specifically for me and my manager at that time when I was exploring going back to school, which was a multi-year decision process of having her support and understanding of what this program was, I think really helped me manage my workload and also my coursework. So that is advice I'd give to any prospective student is to be transparent and upfront about what these commitments look like so that you are able to balance it. I think all this makes a great point here. It does take you a couple of days to really shift your mindset and put work and family commitments or personal commitments and really focus on your coursework. But I think it is designed in a way that gives you the opportunity to not miss your work commitments or to be available as things happen. And I think about even over the course of our time in the program, right? Life happens and our fellow classmates understand that. So whether it been work emergencies or, personal emergencies, people would pick up. Like I'm very personally for me, my grandfather passed away when I was in school, and that meant I needed to be with my family, and they helped me and they supported me. in that way. I think from a, how did I manage my workload from a Cummins perspective, it was, putting in that little extra time or checking emails here or there. But again, my advice to any prospective student is to have that conversation so that you're not distracted by work as much as possible, to really commit to the immersion of the coursework, because it is a limited amount of time. And when I was looking at programs, this hybrid format was very important to me, and I didn't want to sacrifice that. And having a plan and being organized, I think, certainly helped minimize those distractions. But as Aldous mentions, right, there is time built in to be able to manage things that you would anticipate happen over the course of a week or two.
Okay, thank you. And pointing out that it does take a little bit of time to adjust. If you think about a weekend or an evening MBA, when you're on campus just for 4 hours, what I've heard is that when people arrive to campus, they're remembering what they didn't get done during the workday. And then after break, they're already thinking what they have to do when they leave. So in that, you can make an evening or a weekend program fit, but in terms of truly being immersed or committed to it, that's hard to do when you're only doing it in bite-sized pieces. So let's talk about the program tuition. So back we have Anna, front row, second from the left. Good to see you there too.
Yeah.
So our tuition is truly all-inclusive. Everything that you would imagine being covered is covered. Tuition fees, course materials, ebooks, housing on campus, or when we're in one of our international locations, be it Rio de Janeiro, be it Milan, Italy. Transportation once you're within the program, within the residency. So when Anna's group flew from Rio to Santiago, that was part of the tuition cost as well. Most meals, as we saw in the previous slide, and then those other elements that bring out the richness of the program: company visits, career services, social events. So all you have to do is get to and from campus, cover some of the meals, and for international students, there's typically an additional course registration fee that Purdue requires. But truly, it is that all-inclusive, as we've mentioned. Tuition is the same for both programs because we want you to choose what's the best fit for you rather than letting cost drive that decision. And it's split over multiple years at $17,000 per payment. And why I mentioned the multiple years, many companies, I think Anna, yours as well, you do tuition reimbursement on a calendar year basis. So in this case, you can get multiple calendar years covered. Benefits to the firms. I'll go through this, but I really want Anna to comment on the last one about networks. So you're getting the benefit of these 48 credits across multiple areas of what a firm does. After each residency, you can already start using what you've learned. You don't have to wait till graduation. Our surveys of alumni show that they truly can have an impact on their organization. And after graduation, we continue to have these opportunities to learn more. We do continuing education webinars. We do, as a university does events, we do events within the Executive MBA programs. And also, when we look for clients for our consulting projects, we do reach out to our alumni as well. So you can continue that engagement with Purdue University. Then the last element is the networks that form. Every EMBA program is going to say that you can form a network by joining their program. Our experience is that by working with people day after day for 1 or 2 weeks at a time, it's a different intensity or strength that forms. These aren't just people in the classroom that you see once a week, but by seeing them multiple days in a row, you get to know their strengths, their weaknesses. You get to know, don't bother Anna Friday after 8 p.m. because she's exhausted. But at the same time, you get to know the things that make Anna unique and everyone else in your cohort. And that forms a stronger bond, I believe, after graduation and in the years to come. So, Anna, can you talk as an alum now what you thought it was going to be like and what the end result actually was?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I had very specifically wanted this hybrid on campus feel for my MBA program. And so I had hoped for those types of connections and networks, but it far exceeded my expectations to the extent that I, regularly speak with my classmates still today. So I'll just mention, group chats. We have a group chat, and a week doesn't go by that someone isn't, posting an article or something funny or a life event or just checking in to say hi. So a year and 2 months later, those bonds are still very much present, and not only just on the professional side, but checking in on our lives. And you really do get to know your classmates during those residency periods, and even outside of them. I mean, you're living school and life and in this very at sometimes chaotic experience, and you really do get to experience it together. So going in, I'd hoped for, yeah, I'll learn something from somebody else. Maybe I'll make a couple of professional networks, and if I'm lucky, I'll make a couple of friends. And now, coming out of this, we've talked about, what a reunion would look like, or how we can all get together, or Zoom happy hours. And so that just from a personal relationships perspective has been really valuable to me. I think when it comes to, the benefits to your firm, I think professionally I've benefited from it as well. As an individual, from what I can contribute to my company. So for example, one of my classmates was the plant manager of a Fiat Chrysler plant. So he and I would, talk regularly about things that they're doing in the manufacturing environment, versus things that Cummins was doing. So I think I learned from him and the richness of that, of what I was able to bring back to the company. I think even more recently, I mentioned that coaching and mentoring network. So the instructor for that course actually reached out to me about being an advisor for an undergraduate project in the School of Engineering at Purdue. And so for me now to have the opportunity to be a project advisor, I bring that Cummins brand with me, right? When I'm introducing myself as an advisor, I'm an HR manager at Cummins. So I think that branding perspective also, is a benefit to the firm. So I could talk all day about, the fun we had on campus, or, traveling internationally, which was very meaningful to me, along with, the more professional network value that you would traditionally think about as a working professional.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Let's talk about career impact. So in the program, you have the opportunity to have access to various resources. I think the most important one is working with an executive career coach. And the coach's approach is to help you really hone in on what is a functional area, industry, and geography you'd like to be working in 2 years after graduation, and then help you form a plan and start executing on that particular plan. From what we've been getting from surveys of our students, a definite career impact. We're seeing 80% of our alums are promoted within 2 years of graduation. A number more are promoted while they're within the program. It's well over 90%, close to 100 really, of people that are able to have career advancement through their completion and enrollment in the Purdue EMBA program. And it's not just the responsibilities, but the recognition, financial recognition of the skills and impact that you can have is also coming with being in the program. I know, Anna, as you mentioned, you were in Indiana for a number of years, but you've recently moved to Minnesota. Do you think that's at all linked to doing the EMBA program? And can you comment on that transition?
I can, yeah. So I had been with Cummins for 8 years in Southern Indiana, or about 8.5 prior to moving to up here to Minnesota for this promotional opportunity. And I will say, I think, that the early conversations about what Anna's career looks like and what Anna's career at Cummins looked like started in the exploration of going back to school. So I think having the company on board of, this is, additional education that I'm going to receive and what it means for my career was extremely important when I thought about my career path and promotional opportunities. So, during the duration of the program, and then after graduation, this was the plan, right? So get an advanced degree, receive this additional education and knowledge and then go apply it. So I will say in some respect, it was a little bit by design. I think it certainly supported my move from what I was doing in Southern Indiana as an HR professional, managing smaller groups, now to being afforded the opportunity to lead, along with our plant manager, almost $1 billion business. So I think that certainly helped from a credibility perspective. I will definitely say, ask me about it in my interview, right? What did you learn that you think you can apply? So I do afford, my upward trajectory at Cummins in part to having additional education.
Very good. And clearly to having a career management plan.
Yes.
So very, very nice. Thank you. Financing is another major question that people have. So we do find that most companies provide partial tuition reimbursement. Very few in this day and age are providing full. We have a toolkit that can help you in those discussions. If there's two or more coming from the same company, we provide a 10% discount as well. So really, as Anna did, we encourage you to have those discussions early on and have the EMBA be integrated into your longer term plans within the company. In terms of personal support, so people do use savings and loans of different types. The most common Stafford and Graduate Plus loan. We also provide scholarship support. And so across the board, what we find is that between company support, savings, loans, and scholarships, people are able to cover the cost of the program. If loans are part of how you look to finance the EMBA program, we have Kirsten Reynolds' contact here, KDREYNOL@purdue.edu, and you can contact her directly for additional information. I will note that this webinar today will be shared with you. So if you didn't have a chance to write that down, you'll be getting that information in the next day or two. In terms of navigating the path, in other words, next steps. So one, I encourage you to share your resume with us for review. We will comment on if we think your background is a good fit, and we can make a determination about a GMAT waiver. If you're looking at other programs and we think you should, we'll compare our 2 Purdue programs with up to 3 others and send you that research back to you that you can use to add to it, or even discussions within your company with your supervisor, HR department. We'll continue to do these webinars, and we're changing every other month, like today, and then September, it's having one alum join. In August, we're having people join that do not have an engineering or business education background, but they've started from a different potential point, but they've been very successful in their careers by using the EMBA. We invite you to come visit us on campus. We'll have our next cohort here end of September through early October. You can attend a class, learn more about the program, have lunch with current students as well. But really, all these steps are to help you learn better about the program to choose the path that's right for you. If you think you're comfortable moving forward already, you can start the online application. Fairly straightforward: resume, 4 essays, 2 references and transcripts, and then the interview, we're doing them online, and that's with myself and the second member of our admissions committee. If you're admitted, I like to say get ready to be challenged. One word that Anna has not used today is that the program is easy, and that's good. We want it to be challenging because we think that will be more rewarding for you. Here I've also listed the different deadlines. We're accepting applications as late as September 1st, with the program launch coming mid-September. For our global program, accepting applications through early February, with a mid-March launch date for that program as well. For an ending, just showing that people do graduate and they're very happy when they graduate from the program. The middle person is actually one of Anna's former colleagues, well, current colleague within the company, also works at Cummins. And in wrapping up, so again, I'm Aldas Kriauciunas, Executive Director, and Nancy Schmiegel is our Associate Director of Admissions. We're both available to chat by phone, by Zoom. Send us your resume by email, and we can make sure that we have the review accomplished, and we'll help you in any way with your EMBA journey. We think we have a great program, but that's not enough. We want it to be a great program for you and make sure we have the right fit between you and your goals and what Purdue has to offer. So again, I'm going to open up the chat box. If anyone has any questions for Anna or myself, feel free to write those in. As I'm waiting for those to come in, let me ask Anna a few more questions. So if you could share what was your research process. Clearly you had ties to Purdue, but you also looked at other programs. So what was, if you could talk a little bit more about that thought process.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had been on the, I would say, decision journey of deciding to go back to school for a couple of years. I was at a point in my career where I had a very heavy HR undergraduate background. And knowing I had a lot of career in front of me, I wanted to ensure that I had a very well-rounded skill set. And so part of that was, does an MBA provide that to me if I continue on an HR leadership path versus potentially exploring other functional areas? So I think coming around on the idea of what from an education perspective I need took a little while. It then was about, then how do I translate that into a program? And I was afforded an opportunity to attend the Applied Management Principles week-long course at Purdue, which for me, I walked away saying, kind of with that MBA bug of getting, a very tiny taste of what going back to school and curriculum would like. And that's really what sealed the deal for me, that I think I was at the right point in my career and having enough experience to make it meaningful. And then finding from a curriculum, I think I have something more to learn here that would support my future career growth. So through my research, financing was in the financial aspect was very real for my husband and I. It was a financial commitment, and having the support from my company. So as Aldous shared the numbers, a lot of value in this Purdue program. It then was about the curriculum. So what can I learn that I don't already know? Understanding the accreditation of professors and what that format looked like. And then I remember in my interview with Aldous, I said, how do you admit a cohort? Because the people that, I surround myself with and the network are also equally as important to me. So through that and looking at proximity, so I mentioned I wanted to do kind of an in classroom hybrid program, didn't leave very many options. And so, being only 2 hours away from campus, it kind of was like, yeah, this totally makes sense for me, and really delivered on that commitment now, having made it through the program, and now life post-graduation.
So 2 points I'll bring out. One is many people nowadays are choosing, do they want to do an MS or an MBA program, as sounds like you were as well. And definitely the MBA gives you that broader understanding as a generalist versus most MS programs keep you on a specialist track. And then the 5-day or 1 week program or mini MBA, we also have that August 3rd. So if anyone like it was to try out a shorter time on campus, you can join us here in a week and a half. A little bit short time to join us, but we still have openings if people are interested. I'm seeing we're wrapping up our time here, so I'll give you the last question here, Anna, which is, you applied, you went through a program, you graduated over a year out now. What advice would you give to people considering doing an EMBA program?
Yeah, the advice that I would share is to do your homework and prepare. So I'll just mention, I didn't say it was easy, and it was one of the most challenging experiences of my life. And I see, Alan's quote here at the bottom of the slide that it absolutely will change your life. So I think doing your homework and being prepared, speaking with your company and your family about what this experience will be and what, commitments and sacrifices you'll have to make certainly lays a better foundation for you to be able to make this sort of commitment. So that's the advice that I would give. Pre-program, during the program, take advantage of it all, whether it's, the coursework or webinars or the career services. And it's just a once in a lifetime opportunity that I will say I don't miss the homework and the studying, but I certainly miss just that opportunity to learn and learn with others. So taking full advantage of it. And then really committing to, what you're going to do with those connections and what you learn. So part of the coursework is, setting some goals. And you're at Purdue for a very, very short time, but really making it meaningful for what that means for life post-graduation.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I'm glad things have gone well for you. So again, Aldas Kriauciunas is my name. Feel free to reach out to myself or Nancy. Or if you think of other questions for Anna after today's webinar, we can certainly connect you with her and she can address more of her experiences and really help you out. There's many options that you're all considering, and we're here to support you in that particular EMBA journey. So Anna, thank you very much for joining. It was good to reconnect, at least through the webinar today. And I look forward to helping and supporting all of you that joined today on your EMBA journey. Thank you very much and have a great rest of the day.